Welcome everyone to my workshop, Art for Everyone and Anything. My name is Michael Grinberg. I am 21 years old and I'm an aspiring concept artist, 3D artist, and comic artist, so pretty much a generalist. Today I will be talking about not a step-by-step tutorial on how to use the programs and features that I utilize to make art, but more so the philosophy and morals that I believe go into artwork and that have inspired me from content such as Zack Snyder's. And below are all of my social media handles. So if you like what you see and hear, then you can contact me and we can work on something. Or if you just want to see my work, it's all there. Blue Jacket Entertainment is a company I co-founded in 2018 with an awesome person and video editor, artist, and writer named Kevin Tran. You can find him on Instagram at Discount Geek. He's done a bunch of brilliant analysis on Zack Snyder's films and compared them to other big franchises, so you can check that out. Dynamic Comics is led by an awesome person and talented writer named Derek Ride. He recruited me at the latter half of 2020, and I've been inking for him and will be writing in the future. We're doing awesome things with a bunch of fan-made Batman and DC comics. So you can look forward to that, most notably called Batman Macabre and Cirque Noir. That's what we're focusing on right now, as well as a bunch of original titles. So let's get into the next one. So this, you might be thinking, what is this? Well, this is just what I want to talk about just a little bit right now. A lot of people online have been belittling and scolding others who, from a very young age, made a bunch of mistakes. And they said things and they made dumb jokes. And their past has been dug up by these people. And that's just completely wrong. That's not right to do. When I was 16 and 18, I was going through a lot of tough things. I moved for the first time, and there was a lot going on that I'm not going to get into detail here. And the stress caused me to not do anything stupid or bad, thankfully, but I just said the wrong things and made the wrong jokes at the wrong time with the wrong people, rather than just between friends in private and while watching things like Adult Swim, right? And mature films like Zack Snyder, which I love. And that brings me to my next point, which is we need dark humor and dark comedy and art, full freedom of expression of art and words in order to cope with things. Because if you take away this humor and what we can make into art, like these people online are trying to do, then there's no way to cope with tragedy. There's no way to move on from things, and we can't meet other people with the same sense of humor, with the same interests, and we can't get support, and that can be very dangerous. And that's what these people online who dig up others' past and just criticize everything they enjoy don't understand. They're doing far more harm than good. They will cause people to emotionally and mentally regress, and that is that could be potentially harmful to that person, to that individual, and others around them. So Instagram and Twitter are by far the worst of that lot, and they just need a hard reboot. Facebook, thankfully, is great at organizing things because everything is maintained in specific groups, but it's still not very great either. YouTube has just become a platform for lack of freedom of expression. And Twitch just has a lot of convoluted rules and policies. So if we can get all of that fixed, if we can encourage people to make art and just express themselves fully, then the world can be perfect, because you can joke about anything you want. You can talk about anything you want. You can draw anything you want. It just has to be at the appropriate manner And if you're making the same mistakes as an adult, that's completely different than when you were a teenager, because you don't know what someone's going through in their life, and that doesn't give you the right to criticize them. Our station, on the other hand, is toxicity free, at least from my experience. So many awesome people, so much great feedback, fellow artists, and it is the pinnacle of social media, at least in my opinion. Now, before we move on, I just want to say that we should all really understand that in a world that we live in right now, with the pandemic and everything, I would think that people would learn to appreciate the short time we're on this earth. And unfortunately, we live in a society where that just isn't fully possible because of the types of people I mentioned before. But thanks to Zach and Autumn, we have the Snyder Cut, and it's not just that. It's not just a film. It was just a film and a director's vision back in 2017, but now it is a movement against bullying, against abuse and studio interference, and we owe everything positive we have today from that and in the world to Zach and Autumn. And because, and just like what Cyborg said, you are not alone and you are not broken. There are so many people in the world willing to reach out to help you, support you mentally, physically, emotionally, and you're never alone. And there's nothing wrong with you. And you just got to find people with the right interests. So thank you, Zach. Thank you, Autumn. And you will never be forgotten. And we owe everything we have to you both. So these are the topics I will be covering today. I will just be going in depth about the process without having it be a tutorial about the applications like I mentioned before, and just my own moral influences into each piece. So here's the first piece. It is Superman flying over, well, hovering over a demolished Daily Planet building and Metropolis during the Nightmare timeline. I love dark comedy, dark humor, just relentless, brutal, gory types of content. Like I just finished watching Castlevania. I love it. It's incredible. And Zack Snyder's films have always intrigued me because of his mature tone, because he pushes what Tim Burton's Batman did and what Sam Raimi's Spider-Man did. He pushes that to a whole new level, character-driven maturity. And so here is how I started. So I found a bunch of reference photos of demolished buildings in Chicago and New York and Metropolis from the comics, and started with painting, and then I started adding more details with the basic photo textures from free packs on ArtStation, packs on Gumroad, and just royalty free images and images I took around the city here and just my local environment. Then I played around with the contrast and saturation and hue levels. And the final piece, I brought in more images. It's hard to see, but I added some parademons there in the back, just kind of ominous and scary. And then I just started to warp a bunch of different textures and bring them in, and started to paint dust and specks and sparks. So when it comes to concept art, you're always going to be photo bashing to some capacity unless you have a deadline and you may need to make something quick, or if the writers and team already know exactly what they want to see, then you might be asked to make a quick painted sketch, or just something like this, like fully painted mixed with photo bashing and warping textures. So I would choose the lasso tool and magic wand tool in Photoshop, and I would just simply adjust the contrast while adding any new photos that I feel fit. and this is exactly what I hope we get to see. Initially, my concept idea for this workshop was to have the League, all 6 members, not including Darkseid, charging, not including Martian Manhunter, sorry, charging Darkseid from a low camera angle, his hands behind his back. He's massive. He's looming over them in the destroyed surroundings. His Omega beams firing towards them, and each member of the League doing what they do best. Flash would be running up his arm or sideways. Aquaman would come in with support from the sea. Batman would be being held by Superman, either by his grapnel hook or his arm. And I think it would have been, I just wanted to do more, and I think that would have been incredible to see on screen, or have 3 teams of 3 just come in from each side and try to destroy Darkseid's eyes, and then the rest of him, just like in Justice League War. This is my second concept. I've always wanted to do something with the Flash. I haven't shown a lot of love to the Flash or Superman because I've done a lot of Batman and others. So this was my opportunity. So the first one, I kind of structured this like a storyboard. So the first one you can kind of see Superman holding the cowl. You can see dead Bruce Wayne being held by Martha Wayne, is becoming the Joker. And then the next one, you can clearly see everyone. You can see Superman, the Nightmare Timeline, the CW, Justice League, Keaton's Batman just barely, Thomas Wayne Batman, and like I said, Bruce and Martha Wayne. And here, this is from the CW show, but the idea I had for that was have it be Nora and Eobard Thawne, the Reverse Flash, and I would think that would set up the Flashpoint universe, whether that will be in the next Justice League film or the Flash film, the Flash movie. And the way I perceive this is Barry doesn't know if he's being tricked or not, because nobody ever saw who killed his mom, right? Of course, it wasn't his dad. So I kind of framed him like he's stopping in his tracks, like he can't believe what he's seeing, or he's trying to shake off these visions, or he's just starting to charge up and continue to run. And I made sure to frame it as like you can still see the Earth, and you can see the cosmos here, and everything is just shifting. That's what these lines kind of represent. That's everything is just being warped. And here's some yellow lightning. You can interpret that in any way you want, whether that's represents or foreshadows Eobard Thawne, or it's just Flash's classic yellow lightning. I wanted to make it look like the fabric of time was being torn apart and changed. And I really took to heart the lessons that we learned from Zack Snyder's Justice League with the character development between Barry and Cyborg. And I felt that if Barry saw what Cyborg saw, specifically Barry, no one else, if he saw what Cyborg saw when they were resurrecting Superman, and he saw the nightmare timeline, I feel like it would connect those characters even more. It would make Barry mature more, and they would understand the stakes. So this is how I would have structured Barry's moment in Zack Snyder's Justice League. It was glorious how it was done in the film already, but if the sequels were a definite thing, or have the Flashpoint paradox in the Flash film, this is how I would set it up. Next piece is, I would have loved to see Martian Manhunter face off against Superman. And in this, I really wanted to portray a dark metropolis, because we don't get to see a lot of that, much like we don't get to see a lot of Gotham in the daytime. So here's the monument. Here's just probably police over here. There's probably planes and fighter jets coming in. Here's LexCorp and destroyed monument. And I made it rain, not just for the aesthetic, but I think in my mind, I could see that being used to the team's advantage. So whether that would make Barry slip and fall, or it would give him momentum and speed, Aquaman could manipulate the water and shoot it towards Superman, even though that wouldn't harm him. It would definitely distract him long enough while Barry could run around, gather all the smoke and kind of shoot at Superman to temporarily prevent him from having his X-ray vision. And then Martian Manhunter can maybe get into his mind and try to snap him out of whatever's happening, while Batman, who's just standing here, could go get Lois Lane maybe. I also tried to make him just a bit transparent, but also covered by all the smoke, and give him a bit of motion blur. And here's Diana just posing, getting ready to fight. Cyborg, I kind of upped his suit security. This is how I imagine his suit would react and be ready to fight Superman, kind of just completely decked out and ready, arm cannon and legs. And I'll explain Martian Manhunter's involvement more in the next piece. And here's just a kind of more Zack Snydery, desaturated look. So I think Martian Manhunter being involved would have not just been cool to see, but it would have served the story as well. Here's the next one I was talking about. I put this one together today because I was running out of time by the time I'm recording this. So Martian Manhunter, I think, would have served the plot beautifully because him and Superman are so intertwined. Him, Superman, and Lois are more intertwined than the rest of the league are with Superman or even each other, because Martian Manhunter now, as we know, has been there the entire time, or maybe he's pretending to be the real General Swaniki. I know I said his written name wrong, but you know what I'm talking about. And Martian Manhunter, even though we don't have a backstory for him in the DCEU, going off of what we already know, he's from Mars, he lost his family, and I imagine when he came to Earth, he had to cope with that, just like Superman. He had to hone his powers to fit Earth and find his purpose and get used to the new atmosphere, even though Mars and Earth's atmosphere, as we know, is pretty similarly hospitable. Just for the sake of this, I think Martian Manhunter coming in and teaming up with Lois to try to snap Superman out of it would have been great, and then they could fight alongside each other at the end when they defeat Steppenwolf and fight Darkseid and have some heart-to-heart conversations, and maybe even after, and then Martian Manhunter can reveal himself, his shape-shifting powers, right? Because he spoke to Lois as Martha, so he would be coming to Superman as Martha, as he did to Lois, and he'd be helping them both cope. But as we know, Superman, as Zack said, Superman snapped out of this once he saw Lois, once he saw the Kryptonian fetus inside of Lois. And there's just a lot of potential, strong potential character development and camaraderie that could come out of this. And Zack Snyder's Justice League already felt like the Justice League animated series, with everything they did with Darkseid being an ominous threat, not actually doing anything, but he had a presence, right? And Desaad was kind of standing up to him, obviously more in the show than he did in the film, but still the same vibes there. So Martian Manhunter kind of getting along more, or John getting along more with Superman, maybe more than with Batman, as opposed to in the Justice League show. That would have been a really nice small twist on things, and it would have been interesting. And I also wanted to frame this like Batman, this man this demon that everyone fears in Gotham City, and he's just helpless. He's sitting there helpless and almost engulfed in flames with this god about to incinerate him. And then there's this other green devil or demon from hell just walks through to save him, or just hovers down. Now I understand John's is his weakness is fire. So in this, I also tried to make him just a little bit transparent. as if he's taken every precaution to avoid Superman's attacks and the flames, because he understands helping Superman snap out of this phase is more important than his personal safety. And as you can see, so basic painting and photo bashing, and then up the detail, and then finish off with a poster edges filter. And the poster edges filter I'll get more into near the end. This is a piece I did during the holidays. I am better at making environments for concept art as opposed to characters. But when it comes to 3D, I'm better at making characters than environments, but I can also make props, I think, fairly well. So this I just wanted to leave up to interpretation like everything else. Why is Bruce alone? Well, we know Batman is Batman. He likes to be alone. He likes to brood. Is Alfred dead? Is Alfred in the manor somewhere? Is Alfred just gone? That's up to interpretation. I added scars on his face, 5 o'clock shadow, he's just beat up, slight highlights of gray in his hair, and he's just drinking, he's just loathing himself and everything pretty much, like Merry Christmas, Bruce, pretty much. Here's a portrait of Gotham, here's the gun that killed his parents, because as we know, he likes to keep it in certain versions. And I really think this is one of my best pieces with reflections and everything, and this is really the one where I did the least amount of painting, I want to say, aside from all of this, which was really fun to do because I really hadn't done a lot of fully 3D rendered painting before this piece, and the rest is a lot of just photo bashing, which is my best photo bashing so far, I'd say, because it just, I think, matches the lighting really well, and I got all the reflections well enough, hopefully, and in the mirror as well. So this is how I try to make the quality of all my concept art. And here it's even different levels of contrast and saturation, because there's a big misconception that, especially from non-artists, that you got to do everything by hand. You got to do everything traditionally. You got to paint. No 3D, no photo textures. That's cheating. Well, you're wrong about that. They're wrong about that, because Photoshop and these tools all exist to speed up the process. People have deadlines, and you got to get ideas out the door pretty quickly, and it's necessary cheating, and people have to remember that the tools are only as useful as the artist. Not using all these techniques and these tools will not take away anything from the artist who's creating it. It won't take anything away from the process, because who looks at the process? You're looking at a final piece, whether it's concept art, a video game, drawing, or comic book. Who cares how they made it, as long as they're not tracing other people's work and stealing it and profiting off of it, right? Who cares how you do it? You can make art in any way you want. You can use anything as reference. You can use any photo textures. Just make sure it's all legal and morally right in that way. This is a piece I made right before Crisis on Infinite Earths came out. A few people thought this was official, which is flattering. I immediately had to make this after I saw Brandon Routh in the Kingdom Come outfit for the first time. This is my third time exploring with photo bashing, so basic crystal photo bashing. I didn't use Photoshop's lighting effects feature as I do with most of my things now, which I'll talk about that later as well. This I really tried to keep as naturally lit as possible, because as we know, the fortress has its own way of turning on. It's like a sensor. You walk in and it turns on. At least that's how we see it in the Richard Donner films. And whenever I make any interior pieces, natural caves and things where there's no external source, like the bright sun or torches or lights or things like that, I always just rely on the photos I find and the painting to develop the light rather than incorporating lighting effects to set up some quick lighting. And then the second one, I added Batman, just very simple, but based off of Alex Ross's eye slits and just that wider, taller, fabricy type of material. These are my first and second pieces where I photo bash. The first one is very simple. The lighting isn't exactly, I'd say, accurate. See the moon and the light, unless you count with the roof, but this is kind of blocking it and it's behind clouds. It's not perfect, but it's something quick, and you need to practice getting things done quickly for concept art. But you can imagine maybe there are spotlights here, or chopper or something. Added a carnival, a GCPD blimp. For the second one, I really wanted to capture kind of a mixed feel of Arkham Knight and the Nolan trilogy. So I was really happy with how the reflections turned out, because as you know, when you stand in a mirror or any reflective surface, it captures everything from the sides or sometimes even behind it, and that's really always interesting, and you got to study and reference that to get it right. And I tried to make the shadow accurate to the distance of this building. Here's a Vicky Vale billboard. This is based off of the monastery type of structure in Arkham Knight during the Most Wanted DLC, where you find the dead League of Shadows assassins, and then you pursue Ra's al Ghul. And this is just Clock Tower, and this is loosely based off of Wayne Enterprises in the Dark Knight trilogy, mixed with some I don't remember, honestly. I think I was referencing Dark Knight Returns, but I don't think we ever saw Wayne Enterprises there. Then there's just a bunch of dust and speckles and smoke. I used to use a lot of brushes, special effects brushes, but nowadays, despite the hundreds of brushes I have, I really just use one to paint, and I just photo bash and use 3D. Any 3D assets I make, so I use very little of the effects compared to how I did here. And I really love this type of tone. This goes back to the type of content I love, dark humor, and Zack Snyder's edgy tone, more mature tone, because I grew up watching Teletoon at night, and they were always playing 300. I think they played Watchmen a few times there, but 300 was always on, and I watched that as a kid. So I really try to capture that in almost everything I make now. So Batman Ensemble and Batman and Robin. I'm a huge fan of Alex Ross. I have a couple of his books, with more on the way soon, and that's what I really wanted to practice here. So again, like I said, I'm better at making 3D characters than I am painting them. So here I mixed kind of a Batman 0 year and pretty much just Batman 0 year. Here I was thinking about the film Gotham Knight, where it's just different versions of him, and there's that awesome orange lighting, kind of tight mechanical cowl with the tight eye slits. And this, I was thinking about the DCAU version of Batman, so Jason O'Mara's version. So I guess I tried to go for a more realistic interpretation of that. And this is my favorite type to make, kind of a Gotham by Gaslight. Long ear, lots of wrinkles on the cape, kind of dirty, and just simple, lean physique, because Batman is supposed to be very lean and easy to go around. My favorite Batman story, aside from The Dark Knight Returns, is Batman Year One, because I love grounded, simple narratives, and Batman Year One is definitely my favorite in that regard. and I really have been basing a lot of my designs off of that mixed with Gotham by Gaslight. The second concept I made for Cal Arts course that I completed a few months ago. The task was to mix some characters from two of my favorite franchises. So I thought, hey, why not Batman and a Jedi? And I'm not a fan of franchises clashing together, so this was interesting to make. I gave him a purple lightsaber because he's more like Mace Windu. He just walks that line between the light and the dark, right? Killing, no killing. And Robin, I mixed his outfit with Tim Drake, and his face is Damian Wayne. Damian Wayne is my favorite current Robin. If Dick Grayson was still Robin, he would be my favorite Robin, but it's Damian Wayne. So he would be a more reckless Anakin Skywalker type of Padawan, but he would still have that justice, not vengeance, lesson stuck in his head from Batman. And here it's very funny because this is really the only time I gave Batman armor. If you look at any of my stuff, I just make him fabric suits. I don't like Batman with heavy armor. Now I understand that, and it's intimidating if you're a criminal and you see anyone with bulletproof armor charging at you or lunging at you, but I think Batman should stay in the fabric so there's easy maneuverability for him, and he's just like a demon coming out of the shadows and pouncing towards his prey. So this is really the only time you'll see any of my work with Batman heavily armored. Until next thing after this. So comics. Like I said, I'm inking for Dynamic Comics, and I love to ink. I will probably do some more of these for fun, but I'll most likely just wait until our projects are done. So the first one, I'm not exactly sure what the first one is, whether he killed the League or he found them dead, but I just found it very intriguing. I think this one and this one, in a way, are my best pieces. Now, this one is not finished yet, and yes, it's an official cover. It's already been done. Jason Fabak, I believe. But still, practice is practice, and I tried to really make it look as traditional as possible with what it is now, with these effects, and kind of getting a bit of the white effects on the paper so it looks like it's dry ink. And this was really challenging and fun to make. And so the biggest misconception about inkers is that they are glorified tracers, and that's just not true at all. You still have to know character anatomy. You still have to understand lighting and shading, because a lot of the time you do get, as an inker, you do receive rough sketches that you need to finish, and it's the inkers that bring the drawing to life and make it pop off the page prior to the colorists starting to work on it. So I'm really hoping to get more into that, and I will do more coloring, but I'm not a great colorist. I'm more of a painter. So if I ever do paint over these, which I most likely will, it'll be that way. Here's Deathstroke with just a lot of blood, with going back to what I said, that I love the gore and everything, and Deathstroke is definitely top of my favorite villains in DC and in comics in general. This too, so here's the other version of Deathstroke, just less blood. I like to make a lot of variations with lighting and different things. Here's my coloring of Superman. This is the first time I colored a comic piece without painting it. So I really tried to get the yellow highlights and the gray, and I give him a kind of dorky polka dot tie to really help differentiate himself from Superman, Clark Kent and Superman. I worked on the little dent here and the little more steeper fiberglass, hard surfacey looking armor. And like I said before, I love fabric Superman logos, and I really tried to make it seem like that way with the sun coming from the side and the light and little touches to make it actually look like and feel like fabric. But I'll have to work on more coloring later on. So here are some of the originals. This is concept art, the first of many concept pieces for my video game called The Seasons of. The Seasons of will be released under my separate studio from Blue Jacket Entertainment called Grinberg Games Incorporated. It will be a rural, agricultural, fantastical take on ancient Japan and Europe in general, England and Russia in particular. You can read more about it on the Blue Jacket Entertainment page. I made a large enough post with a bunch of writing, so you'll see it, and if you swipe, you'll see all the information and inspiration I took. This is my first ArtStation print I put up recently. By the time of recording this, this is the only one I have for sale, but by the time this is up, I should have many more prints, and that will all be considered concept art and eventually go into a book. So this was really my first illustrated looking piece. So I started off with painting and then very, very light photo bashing with images I took and free packs I have and some that I paid for. And then I gave it that very, very subtle and low setting oil paint filter from Photoshop to kind of give it that feel. I think that's the only time I'll do it for the only piece I'll do that for, probably down the line if it fits. If it's really bright, then it really brings everything together. But my next ones are going to be a bit darker, and so it's just going to be mainly painted. So I'm going to be going in a pattern. So bright, dark, dark. So this is what you can expect from my video game. Very stylistic and very fantastical, very Studio Ghibli mixed with Castlevania, pretty much. And this is my character, Timon. This is just full-on photo bashing, pretty much, with very light painting. And this is Inshallah, very Doc Ock inspired villain. And I'm very excited to show you guys more of this down the line. These are my other concepts for the Village Magistrate. This goes back to me loving making variations, and you got to get used to making variations in concept art. So the first one is more of a royal sorcerer, well, not sorcerer, a royal subtle, maybe like assassin, seen a lot type of personality. Next one is very tribal, and then the third one is just full-on magic and sorcery. This will all depend on where the player is in the game. If they choose to go down a dark path or a light path, and it will change everything around them and the people. And the player will get to choose what skins the character has in general, and both the magistrate and the playable characters. So for this, I wouldn't usually do photo bashing for characters, but I felt very comfortable with it, which I didn't expect. So I did that. I incorporated just a bit of 3D for jewels and things, and then I just painted over and mixed photo textures, and I think that gave it the shine and detail that it needed. So this, getting onto character renders, Darkseid. I just finished this recently. I wanted to mix classic Darkseid with Zack Snyder's Justice League Darkseid, so classic pose. This is the only time really you'll see me do a heavy armor look as well. I'm really happy with how it turned out, and whenever I create characters, I do it with the mindset that they're going to be 3D printed, and I will eventually get an Elegoo 3D printer, and I'll make miniatures and things like that. This was all textured in Blender, which I don't usually do. I use Substance Painter most of the time, but I used the raw lighting and it just turned out really well. And I'll probably use it for some concept art, but whenever I make these characters, I've kind of set the mentality that they have to be extremely detailed for video games aside, only for my video games. So I just mainly make them with the intention of including them in concept art. I was going to make Steppenwolf, but if you've seen Steppenwolf's armor, uh, even though it's a lot of the same pieces, it's just a lot of time, and I'll probably do that down the line. Batman. This is definitely my most detailed Batman yet. I'm not great at posing, so there's that. This was sculpted in ZBrush and Blender, and I just made all those little details in ZBrush first, and then really capitalized on it by texturing in Substance Painter. I always find that the height map is far more detailed. It just pops immediately, and you can see a lot more detail and strength in the color as opposed to a normal map in Blender. And this is my attempt on a face. I was thinking about younger Alex Ross version mixed with the kind of Dark Knight Returns version, but it just came out to be whatever I imagined it to be. So this here's that. I'll probably use him in concept art as well. This is my Batman figurine I made a while ago, year and a half ago, year or so ago. Again, with that theme of Gotham by Gaslight and dark and gothic and kind of owl inspired. I think Owlman plus Batman, or Court of Owls, Talon rather, mixed with Batman would be the most terrifying thing ever. So that's what I really try to capitalize on. And yes, he's holding the head of the Joker. So that's fun. All made in ZBrush. This is the second time you'll see Batman creation of mine with armor. I only really tolerate Batman with armor, heavy armor in Arkham Knight and the Batman. The suit has really grown on me, and I'm really excited to 3D print this. I made a few of my own modifications, which I always seem to do. And whenever it comes to hard surface for 3D printing, I always have the mentality it's going to be hard surface when it's 3D printed. So it's all right if it doesn't fully look hard surface, if you know what I mean. Here I think it does, but it doesn't have to look extremely smooth if you're making little figurines, and in general if you're making different pieces, because when you print it, it's going to be a physical piece anyway. So I'm happy with how it turned out at the end, and you can just imagine that's either just the Thug or the Penguin. I'm definitely excited to make more like this. It's definitely not for concept art, maybe. It's definitely great practice to paint over a model that is not textured. That's great for color practice, lighting and shading, and try to change it up as much as you can. This is a Batman I made way back. This is probably one of my first detailed Batman sculpts. You can just see the intricate weaving I tried to get into the cape and things like that, little patterns and fibers. This is how I imagine Batman, and this is what I appreciate about Batman Beyond most of all, is it's very difficult to differentiate the cowl with the mouth. And that's just a gripe I always have with Batman, is that you can see his human mouth. Now, of course, going back to the point that if anyone lunges at you from the dark with bulletproof armor or just this massive cape and cowl, you're going to be scared and terrified. But this is just like a demon coming out of hell, pretty much. It looks, and I gave him a bat all over because I imagine when he's flying around, he looks like a bunch of little bats, and all you see is his teeth and mouth and just white eye slits. And I love incorporating the bat logo into the cape, and I tried to make it look as organic and kind of tangible and like it moves. So this is how I perceive Batman and how I think he should look, like in this type of scary manner. This is probably my most detailed cowl. I made this with the intention of making it like a detailed prop or a reference for a prop. So again, leaving it up to interpretation and applying the materials in different ways using ID masks and maps and substance painter, and just giving him different types of damage, and so he looks different under every type of lighting, and I can easily incorporate it into different forms of concept art. So water damage, maybe it was run over by a car, cut by a knife, shot with a bullet, stuff like that. And I always really go to Keaton, Michael Keaton, Batman 1989 cowl for inspiration when I just make a cowl like this, because I love it. It's my favorite cowl. It's probably my favorite suit out of the films. And for this, you can see kind of like that carbon fiber Kevlar type of strong material protecting him. And this is a very organic cape. Like, imagine if Batman was flying around with a fully organic cape made out of leather, real leather, cow skin or something. There's fabrics, there's fibers, sorry, and little specks of hair and fur sticking out of it. That's how I hope to see Batman someday, or I might have just adapted into my own little story. This is really why I think my cowl is the most detailed that I've created. So I love incorporating leather, fabric, fiberglass, and carbon fiber into the mask because I think it makes sense. Here's a more close-up view of this. And I really went full out with the foam. So the standard protection on the top of the mask and the nose and the eyes. And then you have the foam, so it's soft and comfortable. And I'm really proud of how that turned out, because I didn't think I would be able to do it, but here we are. So if I were to ever 3D print this, it would be a great reference for when I actually incorporate foam into the already plastic mask, which would be printed. Here are more of the details. Again, I try to focus on the hard surface on top, which protection, and you can see the breathing, and then at the bottom where there are more breathing holes and just fabric patterns, so it's softer, so it's not because it's underneath the cowl. And here's just a bit more of that, and just a little more close up on that, and just a bunch of knife cuts and things. Here's more of that leathery organic appearance. I'm definitely going to have to explore this more in different concepts. So pretty much it's paint, of course, but when there's blood on it, that's the scary part. You don't know if it's blood or paint, so criminals are terrified either way. Superman. So you could probably see, here's the Alex Ross influence. Alex Ross has really distinct close-up lighting on Superman and all his characters' face, as if they're looking into a spotlight or at something glowing. And I think I captured it as best as I could here, and I gave him really the painted suit because I love painted aesthetics, and that's exactly what Alex Ross does. Then gave him a more fabric-y variant, probably too much, but still. And then this is more of an Injustice, Henry Cavill likeness. I'm never confident when I make hair for 3D, but here I think it turned out pretty well, all things considered. And lighting can do wonders. So here he looks older, and here he looks younger. So that's always what I want to achieve, and I'm definitely going to 3D print this eventually and continue on this, especially for my own concept art. This is part of my big 3D asset pack I'm going to be releasing, probably on ArtStation and Gumroad. It's called the Ultimate Rural and Agricultural Asset Pack, which will be followed by a sci-fi pack and city pack, etc. This was all made in ZBrush, modeled and sculpted in ZBrush, and then touched up in Blender, textured in Substance Painter, and then additional texturing for the water damage and things like that, and crevices and cracks in Blender, using some images that I took myself and just whatever was available in the toolbox in Substance Painter. And this is, I think, really great for concept art. Used it before, but I have to use it more because I haven't used it a lot in my paintings. This is also with the crate, again, with that worn down look with the scratches and nails and everything. Because even though there's so many details people will never see, might never see unless they zoom in, it still adds to the whole aesthetic. It still adds to the immersion. So, and there's some oil and stuff like that. So Substance Painter, Blender Render, Marmoset Tool Bag, all that type of stuff in a more foggy environment. And this will be part of the asset pack as well. Ancient Pot, this will be part of the Seasons of game. Probably more stylized, but that will work with the lighting in the game. So I did all of this in Substance Painter, and I love that mossy, broken down and old look. So again, I was using ID masks and maps, and polished the textures in Blender, and just tried to get that different lighting, because again, even though it's the same angles and the same models in a way, the lighting makes a huge difference. My cinematic pylon, made this in Substance Painter and then rendered in Marmoset Tool Bag and Blender and iRay. So this will be part of my city pack, and also most likely the rural asset pack. So I really pushed the details as much as possible on this as well, and again with the different materials. And I would definitely like to use this in a fan like Gotham City project. I wanted to make my own version of Gotham City for a while, so I would definitely use this in that. Environment layout, I've used this a few times for concept art, but it always changes. So whenever you're making a 3D environment, whenever you make an environment in concept art or vehicles with intricate details, you have to make some type of 3D layout, or at least it's very useful for 2D artists to learn 3D and vice versa, because you don't know what your deadline is all the time. It could change, and it's not cheating. It's not being a fake artist. These types of details are difficult to paint in, even with the help of photo bashing. But you don't want to be photo bashing all the time, right? So it's best to get best to build your own environment and have that quick layout, just in case you don't need to make a painting. Maybe you don't. Maybe you just need to make a simple 3D layout, and it'll give the writers and producers a better idea of what they're going for, because it's different in video game concept art, right? It has to be far more detailed, because it has to be it could be used in the production. It could be used as a CG asset, or at least a reference for the CG artists, as opposed to a film where you pretty much have everything laid out and planned out for you. You have the costume designer, you have the actors, you know how things and people will look, but it's still a valuable skill to use, to have. Using reference. This is not cheating, of course. So this is what I did for Metropolis and Gotham City. So New York, Metropolis, Destroyed City, and Chicago. Action figures. If you have action figures, I mean, they're sculpted by fellow artists. They're made to be used as reference. So set them up in any lighting you like, pose them, and that's what they're made for. That's why a lot of artists love getting their own figures of their specific designs or comics they're working on, because it makes things a lot easier. or use 3D, and using my Batman as an example. And cosplayers. Cosplayers are gifts to us. They work so hard to get costumes, put them together, and they're just the best reference. It doesn't matter what pose they're in. It's great practice. They have the lighting, they have the physique, they have all of that set up for you. Just play around with it. Just use them as reference and it will help you a lot. Because Alex Ross, right? He uses reference. He uses the most reference you could use. He has wax figures of his designs. He incorporates his likeness into all the heroes. If you look closely, even the female heroes. And he hires models to pose for him in superhero costumes. So don't be afraid to use absolutely anything as reference, because that's what the world around us is for. Software and hardware. So let's start with Blender. Blender is by far the easiest, well, most user and beginner friendly application you could learn. I forgot to add Unity and Unreal Engine here, but they're just game engines, so you don't really do any modeling in them. But Blender, that's definitely the best place to start for CG artists, and also it's free, and it rivals ZBrush, at least in my opinion, second best in sculpting tools. It has a long way to go in sculpting tools, but still the second best. If you're just looking to play games, an NVIDIA 1080, 1080 Ti card is enough. Intel i5, right? 16 gigabytes of RAM. But if you're making CG art, 32 gigabytes and up, 64 gigabytes, 5 terabyte hard drives, GTX 2080, even 3090 is coming out because NVIDIA constantly makes new applications. And don't underestimate Photoshop. Photoshop can be very resource intensive and resource heavy. So you definitely need good specs for that. If you are just going to paint and you're not looking to play games or anything, you could get a Mac, but a Mac is more expensive. You pay more for less, so you might as well just get a PC or a gaming laptop, because that's less money and it can actually do everything that needs to be done. Substance painters, where you just have materials and you apply them. Substance designers, where you create your own materials. I've yet to really explore with that. I've played around with it before, not to much avail, but I'm definitely going to get back into that, because that's the best one for creating your own patterns, especially for concept art. And Substance Painter can help you polish that afterwards, and you can release your custom materials. PureRef is a reference board, so you pretty much, it's a simple application. You open it up, you copy and paste or drag in images, and it has a lot of space. I didn't use it for my concept paintings. I just found a bunch of Google images, you saw the cities and stuff, but I used it for another thing, which is this PS4 controller I recently modeled for a Michigan State University course online. PureRef is exactly what I just explained. It's free, and you can add your dimensions and everything, and it's just great for having everything there instead of having to drag it all into Photoshop. ZBrush, so we have a bit to go over here. So this is the light box, so it just gives you a bunch of templates. And again, don't be afraid to use templates, especially if you're learning. And if you're making concept art and characters, just use what there is. Use the presets. When you're making characters for games, that's a different story. If you want to make it for something stylized, low poly, just use a preset, especially if you have a short amount of time. But if you're creating your own highly realistic character model, you definitely, I think, want to start with the default sphere, and it's also a lot of great practice because it's not just for that. It's not just for morals as an artist starting from scratch, but because you get to the feel of the character. It's your model. You fully made it yourself. And it's just like rigging. You could use anything, automatic rigs and things like that, symmetrical rigging for 3D characters. But if you make your own rig from scratch, you know it better than anyone, and you can use it and modify it to your heart's content. So this is where you play with the resolution. This is one of your best friends in ZBrush, Z-Remesher. It gives you basically a quick base topology. You can do that once you start the model, or especially if you're importing. It's mainly used if you're at the beginning when you're importing an OBJ or FBX or some type of other model and you want to make some drastic changes and it's already high poly. Then you just press that and it basically goes from this detail to this. But you can, of course, play around with the different levels, and same can be said for clay polish and Dynamesh, and it will be your best friend during sculpting because you don't want to use up all of your subdivision counts. You don't want to get it to the highest level, to millions of polygons, right? You don't want to get it up there, or millions of vertices before you're done, especially when you're trying to export, because once you get up to that level, it's very difficult to export unless you have the right specs and memory. So always keep it under 2 million if you can, depending on what you're making. Of course, I try to aim for 600,000 points, but millions are fine too. If you're working on a very detailed statue or character model, of course you'll need to go into that area, but you don't need to go too high, and you won't have to if you really play around with Z-Remesher and everything else. So here there's a lot of other options. So fibers, if you don't really like creating hair like I do, just open the fibers and you have all of that there. You can make any type of hair you want. If you hold the control key, and then you press the left button on your mouse, or just use your stylus. You shouldn't be sculpting with a mouse. You can mask certain areas and then open the fibers, and then you'll have a preview, and there will just be a lot of hair and vines, whatever you want to make, because there are a lot of preset textures there for vines, hair, anything. And then you can export that. Nanomesh is for basically creating patterns for if you're making a fence, or if you're making some type of scaly armor for a statue or a character. Nanomesh it's a bit of a learning curve, but it's definitely very useful when you get the hang of it. And Z-Spheres is for easy rigging, pretty much. You have to set your character in a T-pose by going into the Z plugin or Z script, and then you find you make it a T-pose, and then it merges that, and then you add a Z-sphere to the scene, and you can easily pose and rig. I don't use that a lot. I usually keep my models in a T-pose because I want to use them for animation, just in case I want to use them for animation or video games down the line. But if I'm making a statue or something, I'll definitely just sculpt right away into that pose, or better yet, just still use a T-pose rig from Mixamo, for example, or create my own, and then I can just pose and then just make the necessary edits. Blender, this is one of the automatic rigify and skin rigs that you have available to you. You just enable it in the properties, And this is where you'll mainly be working. If you're making concept art, and texturing is the shading tab, and there's just everything you need here. Blender is incredible, is extremely powerful. It's free. You can do animation, texturing, modeling, scripting, and video editing, all of that stuff. It used to have its own game engine, but that was removed. But hopefully it will be re-added in time. And these are all of the options. You have weight painters, of course, for rigging and animation, and see texture paint, and then you could just add images, and this is the best one for giving your character a quick, easy, stylized texture appearance. And that's really great for painting practice. I always love to paint in the lighting and then bake it. You're basically baking in the lighting yourself by painting in, and that's great for posing later on, because you have that base color and then you just add the textures. I'm talking about concept art. You add the textures and just paint over more. And you could, of course, do that in Blender. Blender has an amazing feature where you project the textures. It has 3D projections. So you have your model, you bring in the textures, and you can paint the textures on it from an image. And it's definitely the best beginner's software. Um, the the one with the least learning curve out of the bunch. And don't worry what other people are using. A lot of artists get this question: what are you using? What are the tools? Of course, that's important, but um, the skill is all the same. It's all intertransfer. It's all transferable between each application. So it doesn't matter what you're using. If you can get the work done, then a lot of employers, especially indie developers, if you just use Blender, will most likely reach out to you or take an interest if you apply. Mixamo is great for basic rigs. This is what I use pretty much all the time for um, posing characters for concept art, or for a base pose that I'm going to use for a figurine. I don't really do it for figurines a lot. I usually just sculpt from scratch, or use a ZBrush mannequin preset, and then just sculpt in the details and then get the likeness and all that. But this is really great. It has free characters you could download. It has free a bunch of animations. You can see all these different um, categories and sections, and it's all free to use in your commercial products. You just can't resell the assets, of course. So I highly recommend using Mixamo if you're a concept artist and if you're making basic animations. Substance Painter. So this is a basic um, tactical Batman that I made for this workshop. Again, I didn't have a lot of time, so I had to make a simplified version of everything. So this is him in Blender, just showing you how it can look. This is in Substance Painter, just before he was fully finished, but you can see that in Substance Painter, it really makes all the details and the weaving and the damage and all of that stand out. Here you can see it in Blender too, but not as much as in iRay. Here is from my other Batman. You can kind of see more of the hair specs and kind of air bubbles to the suit that I tried to add, and that I added, and the weaving, the intricate weaving in the outfit itself. And this cape, I tried to make it more fabricy. Tried to make it look heavy, durable, but still with that simple fabric appearance. So, and there's that. This is the simple black suit Superman that I made, just the torso and things like that. And again, with the whole damages and torn aesthetic, it's a bit difficult to see here, but these are 3D. These are, I ended up making some 3D pieces for these in Blender, but this was just basic outline pretty much. It has depth to it. It's not just painted on. It's a 3D depth on it while painting using materials and just, basic abs and everything. And also there you can see the space. It's not fully 3D, but it is, it looks tangible. Photoshop. So this is the meat and potatoes of what I was doing. So there are a lot of brushes below here, but I only use this one. This is my favorite one from this brush pack. And this is your gold mine for when you're bringing in photos or textures of any kind, because this is basically automatic blending into your scene. And automatic lighting in a way, but it's more like opacity, automatic opacity levels, making up for the lighting and giving you a base so you know where to paint over. Make no mistake, this is after you use these, the image is not done. You can't just finish the piece like that. You still have to paint over, you still have to edit and fix it up, but these are all your best friend when warping textures or bringing in environments or renders that you made using 3D assets. Portfolio building, I've talked about the job a bit already, but you have to really get used to being told that no, this isn't really what I was looking for, or change this, or just change the whole thing. But you shouldn't let that discourage you, because whatever you make, it still goes towards your portfolio. You can still post whatever you made and say this was a rejected concept or something like that. Of course, if you get permission, but I don't see why you wouldn't get permission unless they were trying to be secretive post-production for some reason. Here's some stuff I didn't include. So this is my portfolio. I've really been with a lot more, of course, but I've been focusing on characters and just the stylistic things and models. This is my basic character model for the Seasons of. If you go on my ArtStation, you can see all the hair I made in ZBrush and things like that. This is a stylized dystopian mailbox, and this is my little mini Kremlin that I want to 3D print, but it's also going to be used in my video games. So it's been interesting to incorporate that and just play around with it and really use simple painted details, and I make them look kind of like stickers, kind of give them like that toy feel, but it'll blend so well with the lighting, it'll give it depth in game. This is the stylized PS4 controller. Again, you can see more once you click the set, and there's just a lot more. So try to be as original as possible. You can make fan art, that's all great. It's great to make fan art, but don't focus on it. It's great to show a studio that you love their IP, but don't focus too much on it, because they still want to see that you're capable of making things from your mind. And that will really help you in the long run and get you more good attention and opportunities. And this is what I didn't add in this presentation, but there's just different versions of Spider-Man, homemade suit, Japanese inspired, damaged, a little more, with the mask up, Alex Ross inspired lighting, stuff like that. This is the basic layout for the Superman concept. This is how I start all of my concepts. So this was for the one I showed, pretty sure. Yeah, this is the one for the one I included in this presentation. The rest I will complete over time, but you can see just that's a basic destroyed daily planet and street look, and you can really get a sense of what you could see in such a damaged environment. Here's the overhead look. Here's more of that, and here's just more. This would be a more of a damaged view with a focus on the debris and everything. So do this as much as possible. Again, for games, especially for games, you would need to make far more detailed assets and architecture, since concept assets are usually used in game as opposed to films, aside from some CGI most of the time. This is simplicity versus detail. So this is a concept from The Last of Us 2, and this is The Last Jedi. I obviously didn't make either of these, but these are the two on my mind all the time when I think of simplicity versus detail. So going back to the video game topic, this is really how it always is. It's photo bashing. It's a lot of photo bashing. Some of the Last of Us 2 concept art, maybe even this, uses cosplayers too. So they bring someone in or someone from their studio to dress as Ellie or other characters, and then they just stand and then they incorporate it into concept art. And again, these assets can be used in game, of course. So there's a lot just of photo bashing. And then you have something like this where it's just the faces are just not faces, but they are, and you can tell who the characters are because you've grown to love these characters and they're already established. So that's obviously Luke with some shorter hair, and that's Kylo, right? That's Kylo Ren. And this is definitely you'd be asked to make this type of concept art for a few different reasons, whether it's, again, if the producers and writers have their ideas down and they just need a quick visualization of the scene, or if you're approaching a deadline or something, or you're tackling different work during the day. This is definitely great for storyboard concepts, and like I just said, for getting a quick visualization of the scene. And this also shows that there's no lack of tradition in the process. Polishing and filters. This is where people really get antsy. So I see a lot of ignorance in certain comments. If you go on Instagram and look under the Mandalorian concept art on their official account, for example, you'll see a lot of people, the ones that have this effect, the poster edges effect, they'll say, no, that's just a screen cap from the show and you put a filter on it. It's not concept art. And it's really painful to see that type of ignorance, because those are obviously non-artists, or some of them, sometimes they are, but they're just so full of themselves, or haven't learned anything, or just close-minded. So never be afraid to use filters in Photoshop, because that's what they're there for. They're for artists, they're for photo editors. And it's completely different than using a filter from some random app on your phone from the App Store, because those are not made for this. Those are made for fun. These are made for bringing an image together. And this is what I was talking about, the lighting effects. It gives you a really quick and awesome effect, and it really establishes the basis for your lighting. But you don't rely on it. You're not done after it, because it doesn't know the material, right? It doesn't know what the material is. It doesn't know how to properly reflect off of it. If you're painting metal or something, it won't have all of those little intricate reflections and details. You still have to add that in yourself. And this is how you get to that point. You go to filter gallery, and there's just a lot of different options. Stylize and oil filter is great for very stylized concepts, like you saw me do before. And to find the lighting, you go into the render and lighting effects, and there's lens flare and blur and all of that. But again, you don't fully rely on this. You have to still you still have to add in the details yourself. Places to learn and sell. I'm still getting into selling right now. As I said, I just have one print on ArtStation. I've been using Coursera a lot recently. The difference between Coursera and Udemy is really more for fun. Coursera actually gives you credentials. It has credit courses. And what I've been doing, I've been getting certificates and validation and all of that. And I've been taking the courses that these specific universities, specifically CalArts and Michigan State University, offer. And from what I understand, you go into their database and you've pretty much taken that course. And again, it's not for credit, those specific certificate courses, unless you pay a few $1,000s for degree courses. But it's definitely great to take. So if you do that and you're an aspiring artist and you're stuck in the pandemic not really knowing what to do, you really should look on Coursera. YouTube is of course the best place to learn, arguably the best place to learn. A lot of people have been saying that film school is redundant now, which is true in a way. You get experience and connections from that. But YouTube is really the best way to learn. It's free, and you learn at your own pace. But of course, use Coursera if you can too. Gumroad is the top choice for selling assets and artwork, but mainly assets and art books. ArtStation has all of that too, but it's kind of a bit more difficult to sell there because you kind of have to jump through some hoops. You kind of have to use their pro subscription too to kind of bump you up. And but it's still a great process. It's still a great experience, and there's a lot of people willing to give you a lot of constructive feedback. And that really brings us to the end of this. I just want to say again, thank you to this man right here, Zack Snyder. Everyone calls him Zaddy. This is, without him, none of this would be possible. He's an inspiration. He really shows that you can push past dogma and people's wrongful hate towards you and non-constructive criticism and make something beautiful, something very simple but mature and beautiful. And of course, Warner Brothers and DC and American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. All of this is for a really, really awesome cause. I have to thank the entire Justice Con team for allowing me to do this, since this is my first workshop, and I've always wanted to do some type of course per se, but mainly talking about the morals and philosophy of art and how it can help people cope and just show what you can make when you really set your mind to it and have the right people around you. So I hope to work with Warner Brothers and DC in some capacity, concept art, making 3D assets, comic book art, or even all of the above. That would be great. Thanks to Nana, Cole, Meg, all of you for accepting my application, and I really hope to be able to do this again. Zack Snyder, if you're watching this, again, huge thank you to you for making all of this possible. You are definitely the Hideo Kojima of filmmakers for me, because you just go out and do what you feel like doing. And even though there's so much criticism and people judge your methods and you have to jump through so many hoops and rely on the fans to help you, which is a good thing, you still get it all done, and you're still an inspiration and will be for many years to come. And that brings me to my point that I wanted to touch on at the beginning as well, is that there's so many corporate and CEO controlled companies, and that's why so many studios are getting screwed over and failing these days, because they just can't get their foot off the ground, and these deceptive leaders and higher ups, they pocket so much money while promising bonuses if a game or film succeeds, and then taking that away at the last moment. It happens far too often, and it's unfortunate. And I have to, of course, thank my friend Kevin Tran, of course. He's the reason I found this workshop. He sent it to me. I didn't think I would get accepted. We both applied, but we're both here in heart. And I have to give a shout out to my friend who's an aspiring voice actress. Her name is Amelia Austria. I want her to be one of the lead characters. Timon, the blue boy character, his sister Khaleesi, or if I find a different name for her, I want her to play the sister. I thank you to everyone I've been able to connect with. Christopher Sean, who's playing Nightwing in Gotham Knights. Stephen Young, who's going to be Red Hood, and Jason O'Mara. Andrew Sellon, who was Mr. Scarface slash Mr. Penn slash the ventriloquist on Gotham. I've really had a lot of support from all of them, and I've made a lot of great connections from them and through them because of them. And I'm excited to hopefully work with Stephen and Christopher Sean, Stephen Young and Christopher Sean on the seasons of, specifically because I want Christopher to voice Timon and I want Stephen to be the magistrate or any role they fit. I want my game to be a very great positive representation of the Asian American community. All of the hate that is going on is disgusting and it's all hypocritical, and I honestly have no idea what goes on in these people's minds. So I want to really combat that the way Zack Snyder is combating abuse and depression with his heartfelt, character-driven films like Zack Snyder's Justice League, like the Snyder Cut. And I want to do that by building a team of very diverse talents and cultures and really take to heart everything he's taught us. And I hope to get that off the ground soon. I will be continuing my studies and continuing concept art for the seasons of, and I might be making a graphic novel for it as well. I actually already started one. I haven't revealed it publicly at all, but I think I might continue the graphic novel, which would be a far more mature tone and basically a prequel to the sequel. So it's a prequel and the game is a sequel, but in universe the graphic novel is the sequel to the game. Far older Timon, far more mature, R-rated, black label, I guess you could say, tone, and the game would be more so targeted towards a general audience or teenagers in particular. So thank you all again. All of you can check out my links below if you want to see more, if you want to get in touch. I am really looking to work with absolutely anyone on anything and really build more partnerships, friendships, and really begin this journey of mutually supporting people. And I've been given a lot of second chances in life lately with this, and I don't want to disappoint myself or anyone else, and this is how I've really gone about redeeming myself for my stupidity as a kid, and I think anyone can through this, not through being belittled, but through creating. And again, you can create anything you want for any purpose at all. So thank you all for watching this. I will be making more like this down the line. Um, and if you want to learn more about the applications, of course, there's a lot that is available for free on YouTube, and I highly recommend Coursera, of course. And I hope that you enjoyed this more philosophical talk, and I hope I could help some of you really gain some of that confidence that might have been lacking if there have been people criticizing your art in the wrong way or just putting you down, because you're not alone, you're not broken, and neither is your art. And well, that's all for me, and thank you guys.